What's up, people of YouTube? My name is Gabby, and welcome to Forever Fandoms. And today I'm going to be doing my second book review on my account, and I'm going to be reviewing the Red Queen series by Victoria Aveyard. And I'm going to be doing this like how I did the Dorothy Must Die review, where I'm going to do a non-spoiler review for Red Queen, talking about kind of the entire series and what goes down, and then getting into a more spoiler review for Glass Sword. So let's get started. If you guys remember, and if you've been here this long, I hauled Red Queen about 5 months ago, along with Binge and After You and the Paper Towns DVD. So I'm going to link that video down below if you kind of want to see me haul it, along with some other good fandom goodies. But this book, I just kind of read you guys the inside cover because I'd heard about it through Twitter and through Epic Reads and stuff, but I really didn't know that much about it. And so I got into it, I read it, and it is definitely a very, very enjoyable read. And a fantastic book, and definitely a very interesting concept, and something fun to get into. But here's the thing. I feel like with these books, and this is just my opinion, but I feel like if you're somebody who needs instant gratification with a book, and you just need to be able to pick it up and get right into it, and you don't really need to be able to like sit through it and really plow through some parts that you feel like are slow. You just need to be able to get a book, get right into it, and just be bam and in with it. So those people that need instant gratification, this would definitely not be for you, because I feel like there are some slow parts in this book, or just times where the momentum, it just feels like it takes a while to get through, and you feel like you kind of need to have some stuff explained. But it is, regardless of that, is still a fantastic read. Just because if you are somebody who can just get through a book and plow through it, and really it doesn't matter to you whether it has that instant gratification factor to it, as long as it is somewhat enjoyable, then definitely you're going to enjoy this book. I think it's fantastic regardless, and I think you all should definitely read it anyway, regardless of how you need to kind of have your read be. And this book, definitely very fantastic and definitely very badass, which is kind of why I'm dressed like this with the red and the bandana and the eye black and everything, just to kind of show the badassness of this book. So I read to you guys the inside cover of the book because I really didn't know a lot about it. But now that I can sort of summarize it shorter, basically what it's about is this girl, Mare Barrow, and she is living in a world of red and silvers. And the red bloods are your average everyday people, a lot like us. And so there's nothing special about them. They're kind of living in poverty, having to work day to day, don't really make a lot of money, and life kind of sucks for them. And then you have the Silvers, who are the ones that are running the government, and the ones that are special, and just the ones that are seen as above everybody else. And they have these abilities. So things like being able to control fire, being able to control people, being able to read people's minds, just a whole bunch of different abilities or gifts or talents, whatever you want to call it. And so Mare Barrow gets dragged into this world because she is an abnormality. She is a red blood with a silver ability. And so when the king and queen find this out, she gets dragged into the silver world and is betrothed to a prince and has to live this whole silver life hiding her identity, all while pledging her allegiance to a red rebellion called the Scarlet Guard. And so that is sort of like her whole deal with learning about who she is and why she is while pledging herself to this red rebel group, and having to live a life among the Silvers. So definitely very enjoyable and very interesting, and definitely worth a read. It gets really fantastic, especially towards the end. The ending is fantastic. The whole story is super, super great. So go and definitely check this book out. Definitely worth a read. And so I'm going to get into the sequel now, Glass Sword. So if you have not read the books yet, go and read them. You're definitely going to enjoy them. And so I'm going to say goodbye for now, non-spoiler people, and then once you finish the books, we can come back and talk. So enjoy the series. So, Glass Sword. For the first half of this book, I really don't have a lot of comments, just because I thought it was kind of slow, and I couldn't really get through it, and especially it was because it's been like 5 months since I read the first book, so there was some stuff I still needed to remember and kind of get back into the whole situation of where were we leaving off, because I didn't want to reread the first book. And so by the time I got about halfway through, I kind of like remembered like where we're at and what was going down, and I was able to kind of like get back to where I was. So I think that's why the first half was kind of slow for me. But I really don't think there was that much to it, so I don't have any comments on it. So where I start off is on page 254, and that's when Keelhorn reveals that he loves Mare, but he knows that Mare is not going to love him back because she is in love with Cal, or she cares more about Cal in a sort of love relationship sense than she does with Keelhorn, because she considers Keelhorn like family. And that just reminded me very much of the Mortal Instruments dynamic with Clary, Jace, and Simon. And so that's just the first thing I thought of, and I guess I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing that I'm kind of comparing it to another book. But I saw that dynamic in there, and it's very much the same sort of dynamic. And so I thought it was interesting to see that in this sort of world where the Mortal Instruments is more realistic with futuristic elements or fantasy elements, and then this book is totally more futuristic. So it's interesting seeing those sort of dynamics in these different types of books. So I thought that was interesting to point out, and thought that was kind of cool. The next thing then in my notes has to deal with Cal being fantastic with children. This doesn't really have anything to do with the book itself, but I think it's extremely adorable. Like, there's a scene that goes down with him and this new blood, Luther, and his ability is death. And so Cal is talking to Luther, and oh my gosh, it's just adorable. It's just one of those things where I was just like, oh my god. It's fantastic. It's adorable. And I want to see more of it. Like, if we get to the epilogue, once the series starts to wrap up, and Cal and Mare are together, and they have kids, I want to see Cal be adorable with children. Like, please do this, Victoria Aveyard. Please, please, please. Because it is mentioned several times throughout this book, and I just pictured it, and it's freaking adorable. So I had to say that because I wanted to know that if there was somebody else that thought that just was like, oh my gosh, as I was. Just adorable. Adorable, adorable, adorable. So when the part of the book really started to pick up for me is when we're starting to see this montage of all these different new bloods that Mare is recruiting to her team. And so one of the things that I think is cool about it is that if you were to picture all of these new bloods, or at least how I pictured them, one of the things I noticed, or one of the big things, is that they're all totally different. Like, different genders, different, like, sizes and abilities and, like, skin colors and ethnicities, just, like, all the stuff that makes them totally different. And the one thing that unites them is the fact that they're all these new bloods, or these red-blooded people with silver abilities. They're these abnormalities. And so I thought it was really interesting to kind of see the fact that all of these people were different, and different ages and stuff too is definitely a big thing. Because I think you get to see a lot more, I think, adult new bloods in here, which I think is really interesting, because in young adult novels you really don't see a lot of adults, or they're not really that important of characters. And so it's interesting to see that some adults are kind of more secondary characters in here and have a little bit of relevancy in sort of the sense of their abilities, and that they're not just recruiting all teenagers, that they also need adults. And so I think that's interesting, and I like how Victoria Aveyard put that in here. And I'd like to see in the third book, if we're getting some more new bloods into the story, seeing more adults and seeing more of that dynamic and the differences between them. And the one thing that sort of unites them is the fact that they're all new bloods. I don't know, I found that interesting, and I liked reading about that. Alright, so I'm pointing this out now because this was kind of the point in the story where I realized it, but you see the word mask repeated a lot throughout this entire book. And I felt like once I actually thought about it, I feel like it was a reference to something we get in the very beginning of the book, where Shade is talking about the Scarlet Guard, and he says, we seem weak because we want to. And so that, I felt like, definitely was a very big indication of sort of their fighting style and how it's going to go down for them, which is essentially that these new bloods and these reds, they don't seem like a threat or something that would be a potential danger, or somebody that would seem like a threat, like somebody that you would be like, okay, oh my gosh, they're really, like, they have this gift that's absolutely insane, they shouldn't be able to do what they do, and we need to, like, be on the watch for them. Like, everybody just looks at them as if they are very weak, and so they seem that way, because then when it comes time to actually battle it out, they have that advantage, because everybody looks at them as weak. They don't actually know what they're fighting against. So it's an interesting strategy to see that they are willing to accept being seen as weak and not actually trying to make themselves seem like this big powerhouse that they actually are. And so I definitely thought that was interesting, how they're having to sort of mask their true abilities and what they really are, and also sort of their emotions, because the minute they sort of let those get the best of them it kind of messes with their fighting style and the goals that they are trying to achieve. And it becomes more about emotions than it does about actually getting it done. So I liked how that all came into the story, and I thought I'd mention that because I think that's a big part of the story and kind of what goes down in the books. So then we meet the character of Cameron Cole, who was sent to us by another new blood named John, and he is essentially an eye or somebody who can see into the future. And so he sends us this character, Cameron Cole, who is a 15-year-old girl who was put into this prison where Maven is keeping all these other new bloods and silvers. And so she escaped out of that prison and is now allows for this whole big prison break scene to go down at the end of this book. And so I thought her character was very interesting considering the fact that she is 15, so that's my age, so she and I definitely have that sort of in common. And the fact that she went through so much, and that changes her ability on how she sees things. And she is first definitely very hesitant to help Mare because she sees that Mare is essentially building up all these new bloods just to put them back on the throne as a silver was put on the throne. And so what this Cameron character essentially sees is that Mare is doing the same thing that the Silvers are doing, except with new bloods. And she says that here are all these red children that are going to be sacrificed, 5,000 of them are going to be put into this war front and essentially slaughtered, and you're sitting here building up your throne for another person who's special and has this ability. What about these kids who are fighting and are going to get slaughtered? You're not doing anything about them. And so we get to that at the end of the books, but I think it's interesting to see her whole thought process. Even though she's 15, she's a lot more pure and has a lot better understanding of what's going on than Mare does. At least in my opinion, I feel like she definitely kind of gets it. And so she definitely is a bit of a wake-up call for Mare, as much as she is definitely very frustrating and very stubborn. But I feel like the two of them could definitely very much be on each other's tail. And so I definitely find her character very interesting, and I can't wait to see more of her in the third book. Before we get to this whole prison break scene, there is some romance stuff that goes down. So we have Shade and Farley, and you get hinted to their relationship towards the beginning of the book in some areas, but the minute it's revealed to you, that's when it sort of hits you that you're like, shit, they're actually together. And it's an extremely adorable couple. I love it. I wish we could have seen more of it, but we don't get to because Shade dies. Now, we'll get back to that in a minute, but he dies, and that's super frustrating. But I would have loved to have seen more of their relationship, and I wish we could have seen more of it because I think they make an extremely adorable couple. I don't know why. I just love it. I ship it. OTP. But it's adorable. It's adorable. I like it, and I wish we could have seen more of it. After finding out about Shade and Farley, we get a quick scene between Cal and Mare with some extremely adorable stuff, and then a kiss. And that's extremely, extremely adorable. And it definitely leaves you wanting more. But here's the thing. Throughout this whole scene, at first I was worried because Cal really isn't himself, and Mare acknowledges that. And so I was wondering, is this actually him, or is this, some sort of ruse, or what's going on? I didn't really believe it was genuinely him, but apparently it was. I don't know. I still really don't know if that was him, but I'm suspicious, but anyway, apparently it was him. But anyway, so this scene definitely very short-lived, but the reason kind of why that is throughout this entire book, you don't really know who Cal pledges his allegiance to. You don't know if he's going to side back with the Silvers, or if he's going to pledge his allegiance to Mare and the New Bloods and the Scarlet Guard. You really don't know what side he's on or what his thought process is. So that's kind of why Mare is definitely very hesitant to be in a relationship with him, because she doesn't really know who he's going to pledge his allegiance to, and he could easily join the Silvers again and kind of do what Maven did to her, which is essentially betray her in a way, or act like he is on her side and then suddenly turn his back on her. And so that kind of leaves her very apprehensive of Cal, and so you're kind of just they're going to end up together eventually because you just feel like it's going to happen, but it kind of needs to click, and you need to know that Mare trusts Cal and that they are both on the same side and fighting for the same thing, but I guess that's something we have to see in the third book, but I'm excited to see their relationship definitely grow, because there really isn't a lot of basis for it yet, but I feel like we're going to get to that eventually, and I'm excited to see it in the third book. You have this really intense prison break scene that goes down where we're freeing all of these new bloods and all of these silvers, including Julian Jacos and Sarah Skotos, who are characters in the first book. And so you're, like, this whole prison break scene, it's going down pretty well. Like, everybody seems to be getting freed. Julian and Sarah get freed, and you think life is working out really well. Everybody has generally gotten out, like, okay, and there really isn't a lot of major problems, and you think everything's going well. And then suddenly, boom, Shade dies, and it's like the end of the world. Because it's the end of the chapter, and you just come to it, and you're just like, wait, what the hell just happened? Like, it's the most abrupt thing, and you totally don't expect it to happen, and it's absolutely insane. And the worst thing is that throughout all of the first book, you think he's dead. And then at the end of the book, you find out he's alive. And so this whole second book, you get to deal with him being alive and better getting to know his character. And, like, one of Mare's biggest thoughts throughout this entire book is, like, you know, I thought Shade was dead, and now he's suddenly alive. And so I have to make sure it stays that way. Shade needs to stay alive. So that's her thoughts throughout this entire book. And then suddenly, boom, he dies. And it's the most frustrating thing in the entire world, especially afterwards, because Mare isn't really that upset about it. She has, like, one small meltdown. But it seems like the people who are very, very upset about it are Farley, Killhorn, and then maybe even Cal a little bit. I don't think, like, that much, but I feel like he has some, like, a little bit of upsetness or frustration. I think Cal is more frustrated at Mare for not being that upset about her own brother's death, because along with Shade, the Queen also dies. Queen Ilaria also dies. And so, at this point, Mare is more concerned about Queen Ilaria's body than she is with her own brother's body. Like, that's the least of her worries. Like, she's upset, but she can't let that be something that's really upsetting to her and really breaks her and crushes her. And so that's interesting, because usually you would have a lot of the main characters being more devastated about that, rather than, you know, focusing more on, like, the rebellion and, like, the fact that we killed the queen. Like, usually it's the other way around, where the main character is more pure and the secondary characters are more flawed, and so the main character has to kind of make the secondary characters pure, where this, it's sort of the other way around, where the secondary characters have to make the main character pure. Because I feel like Mare has a lot to learn. From Farley, I feel like Cameron can teach her some stuff. Cal, Keelhorn, like, I feel like they're all sort of trying to teach her stuff, and she's going to evolve. So I think it's interesting to sort of see that perspective, because we don't see it a lot. And so it's interesting, especially seeing it with one of her own siblings, like losing her sibling, that she's more concerned for the body of the queen and being able to use that for her own plans, rather than being truly devastated about the death of her brother. So it's interesting to see how that plays out and kind of how that makes her flawed in a way. But I definitely want to see more growth of Mare throughout these books, because she definitely has a lot to learn. I'm excited to kind of see her grow throughout the third book. Then we sort of end this story with Mare going and trying to save all of these kids that are going to be sent off essentially to their deaths. And then Maven captures her, and he then sets all of her friends free, but takes her back to his palace, and she essentially at the end of the books is made to bow down to him, and that's where it ends. And so that's an extremely intense ending, and I'm excited to see where it goes in the third book. Because I feel like we know she's going to get freed, like we feel like we know that's going to happen eventually, but we're just kind of like waiting for it to happen and kind of how it goes down and repercussions of it and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see. So definitely excited for the third book, and I'm so glad that Victoria is coming to BookCon, because that definitely gave me a push to read the second book. So yeah. That has been my review for the Red Queen series. Definitely a fantastic series. So if you stuck around for the spoilers and are kind of like, you want to know what? I still want to read these. Go and pick them up. Go and read them. Definitely worth a read. And so, thank you for watching this review. Comment down below what your favorite parts are of the series, how you found out about the series, etc., etc., etc. And thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you around. Bye!